Hey everybody, my name is Joe and welcome back to another edition of 360 Comics. Recently, I asked you, the viewers, what you would like to see on the future of this channel, and the number one most popular response that I got was more speculation videos. It's been a while since I've done one, so today I have 10 Marvel comic books that I think have some potential with the future of the MCU. If you enjoy this content and want to support the channel, all you got to do is hit that subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up for a like, and leave a comment down below with your feedback. Also, head on over to Instagram and enter our 7,000 follower giveaway. We're giving away this high-grade newsstand copy of Batman 429 with this incredible Joker cover. It's going to be over soon, so don't miss out. As always, nothing in this video is intended to be financial advice, but rather me talking about comic books that I am personally buying right now. Don't go out and buy something just because I talked about it. Do your own research and decide for yourself what you want to do with your money. We're going to kick things off with my favorite superhero team of all time and the MCU appearance about which I am by far the most excited. I'm talking about the Uncanny X-Men. Now, we all know mutants are coming at some point. We don't know when. It could be soon. It could be a couple years from now. But personally, I think the mutants are going to be sprinkled in. It's going to be one or two here or there in other franchises before we see like a dedicated mutant movie, before we see an X-Men team at all. We'll see a couple here and there. I've mentioned before, I think we're going to see Rogue and probably Mystique in the Marvels. That being said, I'm looking far into the future because the X-Men are going to be around for a while in the MCU. And personally, I think that this character right here, Forge, is an underappreciated, underloved, and undervalued character. This is Uncanny X-Men 184. It's the first appearance of Forge. And like I said, he is a phenomenal supporting character. He's a tinkerer of sorts who can just, be that supporting character behind, the main focused X-Men members. I don't think he's going to be like the leader of the team. I don't think he's going to be focused on like Wolverine was in the previous X-Men movies. Nothing like that, but I think he's a great supporting character that could show up and, really contribute to the storyline and just be kind of a surprise for the MCU. A lot of more casual readers probably don't even know about this character, especially those who really have just watched the movies and stuff. But yeah, I think he could be really great. And not only that, but given that he is a Native American character, Marvel's really going for a lot of diversity, giving representation to everyone in the fan community, and I think that's great. And this is a possible character that could be part of that representation. So I'm picking this book up. You used to be able to get this book for like $5 or $10. I really see it for no less than 15, but if I ever do and it's in decent shape, I always pick it up. Next, we're hopping up just a few issues later, Uncanny X-Men number 191. This is the first appearance of Nimrod, who is a Sentinel, but he's a Sentinel from like either a different universe or in the future or something like that. I actually forget, but I think it's a different like timeline. That being said, Sentinels, they have to show up at some point. We know that. And given the MCU is becoming more of a multiverse, we're seeing these different timelines stem off. There's a possibility of this character showing up. I think it would be really, really cool. And not only that, but this is just a phenomenal cover. And I would love to see this happen in the MCU because we see Vision get stuck in Colossus a couple times during the comic books. It's a pretty common occurrence. So maybe we'll see it in the MCU. That would be awesome. I would definitely really like to see that. That being said, both this book and the last book, while they have a lot of potential, they are just firmly decent keys all around because they're Chris Claremont X-Men keys from the mid 80s, the early parts of the Copper Age. And for that reason, I think that, the floor on them is not too low. These aren't going to like suddenly be dollar bin books one day if the characters don't show up. They are decent books already that sometimes you can find undervalued. And if you grab them and one of the characters shows up, there's a potential for the value of these books to go up considerably. That's just my 2 cents on the subject. But again, don't take my word for it. I know for a fact that I own 2 copies of this next book, but I am really disorganized right now from moving, and I can't for the life of me find either of them. So you're just going to have to deal with this picture for today. We've got Strange Tales number 180. Now, this is a quadruple key. There are 4 things listed as key significances on keycollector.com. One of them significantly bigger than the other 3. This is the first appearance of Gamora, the second appearance of Pip the Troll, the third appearance of Magus, and the debut of Adam Warlock's new costume. Now, that being said, the Gamora first appearance is the big deal with this book, but those other things definitely have the ability to, pump up the value of this book because, we've already seen Pip the Troll show up just a little bit. We know Adam Warlock is cast, and the other 2 key significances, deal with things related to Adam Warlock. So I personally think this is a great book to pick up for the future. Now, it is the most expensive book on this list. You can get mid-grade copies for, probably a little under $100, and high-grade copies are several $100s. That being said, I still think that this book has some potential to go up, especially if, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 does really well, because a lot of these characters that I mentioned before are going to be incorporated into this movie. Again, that's just my 2 cents. This is definitely a higher buy-in book, which always, creates a little bit more, risk and money up front, but it could play out to be really good. I mentioned Gamora while talking about the last book, and I gotta mention Nebula next, because James Gunn tweeted out that the next Guardians of the Galaxy movie, Volume 3, which will probably be out in like 2 years, is going to focus on the sisters, Gamora and Nebula. They go hand in hand. This is a much less expensive first appearance to buy into because it was later on down the line. The last book was from the 70s. This was from the 80s. I would assume that the Avengers print run was a lot bigger than the Strange Tales print run. That's just a theory, though. I'm not actually sure about that. Nonetheless, I have always thought that this was a pretty undervalued key issue, even after Nebula appeared multiple times in the MCU with great performances. I actually think she's a really underrated character, and I'm definitely happy that we're going to see more of her on the screen in Guardians Volume 3, and it seems like we're going to get a little bit of Guardians action in Thor Love and Thunder as well, after the trailer dropped this week. So for that reason, I'm holding on to all my copies of this book that I've been piling up, and I have one of them that I really think is a 9.8 contender, so hopefully that'll come back with some good news. And while we're on the topic of Avengers books, let's talk about this one right here, and bear with me for a second because this one's a little bit out there. In fact, I have heard no one else talking about, referencing, or showing off this book, but I've been picking them out of dollar bins for the last year. Anytime I find one for a low price, I am grabbing it no matter what because I think this book has some potential. Reason being, I said the last year, well, about a year ago was around the time that they announced Kang the Conqueror was eventually going to be coming to the MCU, and shortly thereafter, we actually saw a first glimpse of a variant of him in the Loki television series. Now, this is a Kang the Conqueror storyline, but even more than that, it is, first appearance of some Kang-related characters. There is a team of mercenaries that first appear in this book called the Anachronauts, and they are mercenaries that work for Kang. And they are actually pictured on the cover around the outside with the Avengers in the middle. And not only that, but this issue, the storyline here, Kang is using the name Victor Timely, and he is a businessman or something like that in Timely, Wisconsin. And all this is on Key Collector. So this information is out there for people to find. It's a matter of if people actually look for it or not. That being said, it would be really cool to see that variant of Kang, this Victor Timely, and think about what we've seen recently. We've seen the Timely run of comics that came out this year, or rather late last year, late 2021, I believe was the first issue. It might have been early this year, but nonetheless, a Kang-related storyline called Timely. Are they going to be utilizing that persona, that name, that alias in the MCU? If so, I think this book has some serious potential, considering that you can find it for under $5 pretty much everywhere. I have never actually seen it for marked at more than $5 anywhere. So look out for this one. It's going to be hidden in the back of the Avengers section and those back issues. And I'm grabbing every copy, especially this one, because this was a nice high grade newsstand copy. Next up, we've got some Spidey spec for you, and this is Amazing Spider-Man 406. We've seen Dr. Octopus on the big screen a few times, including just last year in an MCU-related movie, but that was not necessarily the MCU's version of Dr. Octopus. That was the Tobey Maguire universe version that had come through the multiverse portal, all that stuff, blah, blah, blah. If you haven't seen that movie, what are you doing? Do you live under a rock? Go see it. Anyway, we've seen that Dr. Octopus show up. I cannot imagine them continuing to do Spider-Man movies and Spider-Man related things without having some form of Doc Ock show up. Probably won't be Otto Octavius, though, because we kind of saw the character already, so maybe they will do a different version like this one right here, Lady Octopus, who has her first appearance in this book. She goes up against Spidey, Peter Parker, as well as Ben Reilly, the clone of Peter Parker, known as the Scarlet Spider, who she is pictured really nicely on the front with. This is just a great key, and I have been pulling these out of bins, paying, $1 to $3 very regularly over the last couple months, including I only paid $4 for this newsstand copy. You don't see very much of those from the mid-90s, so I knew I had to grab it. $3, no-brainer. So be on the lookout for this one. There's a couple other versions of Dr. Octopus over the years, so you never know which one is going to show up, but I think this book has some pretty nice potential. Unless you're brand new to the channel, you probably saw this book in my last video just a couple days ago when I bought a modern Marvel collection. Well, as soon as I saw what was listed under this book on Key Collector, I knew that it was going right into my speculation box, and I'm very excited to go out on the hunt over the weekend and look for more copies of this book right here. We've got Spider-Verse #2, and this is another quadruple key. 4 things listed as key significances on Key Collector. This is the first appearance of Captain Anarchy. It's the first appearance of Arachnido Jr., who is a Spider-Man in Mexico City. It is the first cover appearance of Spider-Punk, a character that I really like, who has been hyped up by Very Gary quite a few times in his speculation videos, and who just had his first solo run. Spider-Punk #1 came out a few weeks ago. That being said, the fourth key significance of this book is that his identity is revealed. He's revealed to be Hobby Brown, who was the Prowler in Earth 616 in the regular Marvel continuity. He takes on the role of the Prowler. Now, I've mentioned the Prowler in previous speculation videos, specifically his first appearance, Hobie Brown's first appearance as the Prowler in ASM 70 something. I can't remember the number off the top of my head, but this ties in very nicely to that, as well as Spider-Verse stuff. And again, it's a multiple key. There are different characters featured in this book with key significance. So even if just one of them really takes off, it could mean big things for the movement of the price of this book. So I would be on the watch out for this one. You caught a sneak peek of this next book in the beginning of the video, and now we're going to talk about it. We've got Amazing Fantasy #1. No, not the Amazing Fantasy from the early 1960s that spawned Peter Parker. This is volume 2 from the early 2000s. This is the first appearance of Anya Corazon, aka Aranya, Heart of the Spider. She is a great character in my opinion. Her look, her style, really awesome. And, it's another Spider character that could be incorporated, whether it be in the Spider-Verse movies or in the greater live-action MCU. I think she's great, and I think it would be really cool to see a team of all-female, all-Spider-related characters. There's so many of them. Julia Carpenter, we've got Jessica Drew, the OG, we've got Spider-Gwen, Ghost Spider, whatever you want to call her. We've got Silk, my personal favorite. We've got Anya Corazon over here, Penny Parker even, but Mayday Parker, that's another one, Spider-Girl. I digress. Back to the topic at hand here. This character is awesome. I would love to see something with her, whether it's on the big screen, the small screen, animated, live action, any of those. And, part of that diversity, she's a female character. She's a Hispanic character. So a lot of great stuff there. And look at the cover of this book. The glare is not doing this justice. I got to hold this in a little bit different light. This is an awesome cover. Love it. And you'll note that this is the only graded book that I have in the video. That's because I don't actually own any raw copies, but I own 4 9.8 slabs of this book as of right now. And honestly, I'll probably be grabbing more. The only reason I don't have any raw copies is because I never can find any. At least I can never find any for a reasonable price. They're either astronomically high and it's just better for me to go ahead and buy a 9.8, or they're just not there. It's kind of a harder book to find for a modern book. I got to look at the census. I haven't yet, but maybe I'll do a video on some census stuff and talk about this book. But anyway, yeah, like I said, I'm picking it up whenever I can find it. I believe this next book to be very underappreciated and undervalued. We've got Iron Man 284. Not only do we have this Death of Tony Stark cover with him in the casket, something that we've seen in the MCU happen, but it's also the first appearance of Rhodey in the War Machine armor, and we actually see his shadow over Tony Stark right on the cover. Now, a lot of people get confused. Iron Man 282, just 2 issues prior to this, is the first appearance of the War Machine armor. And it's got a great cover with War Machine written over Iron Man. But Rhodey does not put on the armor until this issue. We see Tony Stark in the War Machine armor. Also, War Machine isn't even called War Machine in this issue, not until West Coast Avengers number 94. That's when he picks up that code name. That being said, first Rhodey in armor, Death of Tony Stark, right on the cover. Really great stuff. This book, I see it for $5 all the time. Like $5 or less, I should say. Typically this book has been selling for like 10. But honestly, I think that's still really undervalued because this should be a bigger key, in my opinion. 282, Iron Man 282 is very expensive, and West Coast Avengers 94 is creeping up there as well. Not quite as high as 282, but nonetheless, this is a great key to pick up on the low. I've got this nice high-grade newsstand copy, which are out there, and this is a 90s book, so the newsstand stuff is going to be a little bit harder to find, and if you have that right collector that looks for 90s newsstand stuff, you can usually get a nice premium for it, so be on the lookout for this one right here. Last but certainly not least, we're going to close things out with the current hype character in the MCU. And when I say that, I am not saying that in a negative way, because Moon Knight deserves all the hype that he's getting right now. Not only is this character just awesome in general, but the show has been great so far, and I'm really excited to see where they're going to go in episodes 4 and 5. That being said, we've got the first meetup of Moon Knight and one of my favorite characters of all time, Daredevil. And I love these two characters. Moon Knight has really grown on me in the last year, where Daredevil has been a character that I've been into for a while, and these two meeting up is phenomenal. I think that meetups, first meetings of characters, especially ones that work together at some point or have a history together, I think those are really undervalued keys. And I would love to see these two not only meet up in the MCU, but work together in some way, whether it be, tackling a villain together or even working on a team together, such as like the Midnight Suns. That's one that's been kind of thrown out there, that maybe these two will end up on a Midnight Suns team in the MCU. I think Oscar Isaac actually mentioned the words Midnight Suns in an interview recently, but let's not get ahead of ourselves there. Daredevil season 4 is apparently slated, and they're going to start filming, and it's going to be back. It's going to be on Disney Plus, but yeah, they're going to continue that storyline, I guess. And I would love to see Moon Knight show up in that. These two characters have a lot of differences and a lot of similarities. Whereas Matt Murdock, traditionally a really Catholic character with a lot of Catholic guilt. Mark Spector, a Jewish character, and that plays a lot into his storylines. Not only that, but they both suffer from some sort of ailment. Mark Spector with his DID, dissociative identity disorder, his mental illness, and Daredevil is blind. He's got that physical disability there, or is that physical? I guess that would be called physical. Anyway, great characters, great street level heroes, often very, very violent characters, both of them. So I think kind of for the more adult side of the MCU, these two showing up together would be phenomenal. I originally bought this book just as, something I wanted for my personal collection, being a big Daredevil fan and getting into Moon Knight, but I've picked up a couple copies over the last couple months because I would really like to see them show up, and if they do, I think this is a great book to have. That being said, we're all done with those 10 spec books. Hopefully you guys got some ideas, but again, don't go out and buy these books just because I talked about them. Do your own research. Let me know in the comments below what you thought about these books, if any of them kind of pique your interest, or if you think that they're going to be duds. Let me know either way. I'd love some feedback, whether it's positive, neutral, negative, whatever, as long as you're nice about it. That's all I ask for. Anyway, hope you enjoyed. Like I said, like that video on your way out and subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. And until next time, turn the page, wash your hands.